Let's start in general session, and we're going to stand for the pledge. Darren has arranged for our flag for us.
2 seconds. Come on.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to
the
the flag
flag
of
of
the
the
United
United
States of
States of
America,
America,
and
and to
to
the
the
republic
republic
which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty
and
and justice for all. Thank you.
Nice start.
It's February 10th, 2021, 8:30 in the morning. We're in general session, and we have all board members here. We have our legal counsel with us and our general manager. Revisions or deletions, anything? Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're in executive session. Everybody in.
we now have attendees are joining,
Okay,
but you can't see them. They can raise their hand if they have questions.
all right.
Can I take a 30-second break? I'll be right back.
Go ahead.
Press, I don't believe you need me. I'm happy to stick around if
I'm
there's
sorry,
anything you need me for, but
Okay, if we have any questions, we'll catch up with you later. And remember, tomorrow I've got an appointment that at 9:45, and I've got to leave at 9:15, so it's only going to be an hour and 15-minute session. I mentioned that when we decided, but
no,
Okay.
I think that works for me as well. So, okay, thank you all.
thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
All right, it's almost 8 o'clock, almost 9 o'clock on February 10th, 2021. This is a continuation of the meeting that started at 8:30 in an executive session. We've come out of executive session back into open session. Item 6 on the agenda is open forum general discussion of any action or items for the executive session. I don't believe there are any, so I'll go to the workshop itself. The workshop, as noted on the agenda, has 11 items basically, and we're not sure that we'll get to all of them. We've decided that we would carry this through until noon, and we'll take it as many topics as we can between now and noon. We will cut it off at noon, and if there are items remaining, we will most likely decide to pick them up at a future workshop. So we'll go into the workshop items. And the first item is item A, review of the 2020-2021 strategic planning goals. Hopefully that everyone has picked up. I think we sent it out with the information, and just briefly, we can go over the goals we had for this past year and where we are right now. Darren, do you want to pick that up? You can tell us what we've achieved on the goals we had.
If you don't mind, I'll just share the screen here if you can
Sure.
see it. Here's our the electric study. We were given a timeline to accomplish the actual study itself. We've done that. We now have the Jeremy Johnson and Sargent and Lundy. We've completed that study, and we now have a couple of things. One, they said that the electric system is actually in very good shape. They're saying that if we have concerns about electric vehicles, what they did is they put a consideration, an assumption that 50% infiltration of our system with electric vehicles were to occur, that our system still for the next 10 years would be able to handle it. So we feel like we're in pretty good shape there. We have also looked and moved them forward with going out to bid on a battery. We want to have an industrial battery. They're still going to be giving us the suggestion of what size. They're also asking the new proposals, the people that'll be giving us their request for proposals. They'll also be having to answer that question of what size they think is what we need to have and what will fit for our footprint somewhat. So I believe we've accomplished our goals for the electric side. On the billing, administrative, and operations, we have now gotten the new NISC into place, and identifying internal roles that need to be expanded and or additional staff hired. We've also completed the RKL study. With that study, we have already gone out for the hiring of 2 new people. We have had people in the office that have been wearing multiple hats. And so with their study, we've broken that out. We have made an offer, and on Tuesday, we should have a new bookkeeper / accountant who's going to be coming on board. We're anxious for them. The second person to hire is an administrative assistant. Currently, we have about 155 applications for that. And thankfully that the press and Tom Panetta are going to step in and help do that hiring. So we're kind of thankful for that. We come down to the infrastructure. We were looking at, we wanted to take and improve the water quality. We're doing the sewer lining. We're going to be working on moving forward with the sewer lining on Cedar. But this last year with COVID, that really shut a lot of things down and actually slowed down the work and progress that we had going on Pilot Town Road. The other thing we've done as a board is we've looked at slowing that down. We've just finished looking at both a 5-year and a 10-year capital projects plan. And with that, we're still going to be working on those, but it'll be probably pushed out an extra year before we actually change the water lines, but we'll be able to do the work on the sewer lines and get them probably beforehand. Policies for customer database security. We have the updated website, the tools. Part of the NISC that we have done provides a customer portal, and that customer portal is very robust. And so the communication from customer to the billing system has been enhanced. It's doing a very good job for us, and we appreciate that interaction. With the new hires, we are going to be looking at taking and improving our website, get it up to a little more modern, and make sure it's as robust as the board would like it to be. Administrative operations, competitive wages and workforce development. Again, we've done the RKL study, and it showed that we were kind of behind the 8 ball on several positions. In the new O&M budget that we proposed and we anticipate being approved this coming board meeting, that has those changes included in it. So some of those that have been significantly behind, and I would mention specifically Austin at this point in time. He's one of our young and talented and and we want to do all we can to retain him. So we've taken and we have done the study, we have implemented those changes, and that would be a part of what we're doing in our O&M. That's what my review and uptake of where we are currently with the strategic plan. In my opinion, we're on board and doing what we're supposed to do.
Great, thank you. The object of this workshop is to identify other items we want to discuss going forward with the operations of the BPW. And hopefully what will come out of this is some recommendations to update this strategic plan for the present or the next fiscal year, the 21-22 fiscal year. So this strategic plan we just went over, the goals will be updated for the next year. So that's a goal of this workshop, is to identify goals that we want to add to this, update this list to include. Excuse me.
Hey, Darren, can you, I think you just did it.
I just dropped, for some reason, the mayor kicked back out and now he's back in. Mayor,
Yep.
you had your hand raised, but you're on mute.
Yeah, I couldn't get, I was trying to unmute myself, and so I rebooted. So thank you very much for letting me back in. Okay.
No, okay. All right. Did you hear that presentation at all, Mayor?
I heard most of it. Yeah, I
Okay.
heard basically the last third of it, I think, or third.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
So item B, status of the implementation and of the recommendations made by RKL. You talked about that briefly. Darren, do you want to go in a little more detail? What exactly came out of that? And
Yeah, we've done, so there were kind of three areas. Number one, they looked at what our current staffing is and where those, where the actual process, do we need more employees or not? What areas could be strengthened? And so with that, we came back and they suggested on one area, we had a person who was being overworked because they had multiple hats they were wearing. We've taken one of those hats away and created a accounting financial person. Again, we've gone through and we've done the hiring for that. We've done the interviews, etc. And thanks to Earl, we really appreciate your input as well. We have that person that we're going to be onboarding here in a week. The second item is to have an administrative assistant to help us. There was another study that RKL did for us, and that was on our filing system, how we have things organized here in the office. And you can kind of tell from, at least my desk is actually, you can see the desktop now. We're going to be hiring an administrative assistant, and we're going to be adopting a centralized, more consistent filing system for the electronic filing. We're also going to be changing some office space so that files that have to be archived, etc., are also locked and secured as they should. So that was two of the steps of the RKL study. The other one was the financial side of it. There were several people that are not being compensated correctly. We're going to be making those moves to make that happen. So all of those items that came through the RKL study, we're reacting to and responding per their requirements.
In the handbook.
Correct. Thank you, Austin.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone through that. We have a couple items that we were out of, they've made, in general, most of them are regular kind of tweaks to keep us in the language that's necessary to meet state hiring and rules. But they've also taken and we've got a couple of those that we're going to be bringing to you as the board at the next board meeting to have you understand what we've done.
so it sounds like, we asked if you could do it by the end of this fiscal year, and it sounds like everything's in line for that to happen with the hiring and so forth. And I guess the thing that's going to be the longest term, I imagine, is the going back to some of the bookkeeping, the filing issues that they want you to go back and update. That sounded like a longer process to go back and old stuff. So I don't.
Actually, I think we should, I believe we're going to be able to handle that fairly quickly while
Oh,
we
really?
some
Okay.
things behind locked doors. Et cetera. I think we're very close. We weren't as far off as I think some might read into that. So I
That's
think
good.
we're very close by the fiscal year to have that all corrected.
Wonderful.
Hey, Darren, just one question. The admin that's being hired, will they have any kind of project management capabilities, given all that we have coming up?
Yeah, that, I think Press, like I said, Press and Tom Panetta are going to have their look at that. And I know that that's on their purview. That's one of those interests they have.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, well, related to that is item C. What will be the bookkeeper's role and responsibilities? How will proper financial oversight be assured? And I should have said at the outset, this list was put together by asking all the board members to provide suggestions for topics for today. And then the top most popular topics were put into this list in the order of the priority. So that's where this list came from the board members. It was generated by an election from them. So Darren, do you want to hit number C or letter C?
Sure. Let me share again. Let me quickly share my screen with you. You'll see this is from RKL. RKL actually produced their bookkeeping, accounting, and auditing clerk. So this is what we sent out as their duties, responsibilities. Primary duties, responsible for accurately monitoring and maintaining the general ledger, verify the accuracy of financial and or transactional data, recommendations to improve financial intake, tracking, and processing. Records numerical and financial data to produce financial records, ensures financial data is entered correctly and accurately, enters journal entries to debit and credit the company's accounts, generates accounting and audit reports for cash receipts, accounts payable and receivable, expenditures and profits and loss, reconciles and reports differences or issues found in financial records, compiles data and or documentation for internal reports and board meetings, performs other related duties as assigned. Skills and abilities, they've got to have the education, they've got to have the one we've hired has a degree in accounting. We're excited to have that new person on. But with that, the other step of this, when it comes to the financial oversight, NISC, the software that we have in place, it requires multiple levels of approval for all of the journal entries, for all of the accounts payable, for all of those things. And so there's a natural motion from the person who's the financial officer to either myself and or Austin, and then from us to our treasurer, Earl Webb. All of those things are being recorded and touched at least 3 times all the way through. And so as this has been a question and a concern for you as a board, I would take your direction as to what more we want to add to that.
I can just tell you from my perspective, having approved the bills, I guess is the right way to say it, or looked at them. There are times where I've had questions and I posed those questions and I've gotten answers back that were very, very logical. So I think the process as well is pretty good. And I think having our RKL come in and look at the separation of duties and responsibilities has been helpful, because you want to make sure that you do have those bifurcated, particularly in the financial world. And I think the new person coming in on the finance side is just another great level of support for that process.
And I would also add, we also have the annual audit that we have we changed our auditors recently. Last year was the first one with the Zelenkowski Axelrod, who did the audit for us. They'll be doing it again this year. So they have fresh eyes. They don't have a set system yet. And so I'm very confident that they're doing a thorough job. So we've got a 4th level of auditing going on and making sure that everything's done right.
When do you anticipate having the bookkeeper on? I mean, I don't know what his
This coming Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Her last name is Belair. What's first name, Austin?
Kimberly Belair.
Kimberly.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Kimberly Belair.
Kimberly Belair, okay. And will she start Tuesday? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Great. Wonderful.
She'll get most of her training. I mean, obviously there'll be times where she has to learn the office and, logging in systems, but
Sure.
we have a whole program for her to go through on NISC, which will start her getting familiar with the layout and everything. And then we'll start going into the weeds when it comes to, AR, AP, so forth.
Where will you put her temporarily?
In the Memorial Jack Lesher office.
I thought so. Okay. All right.
I'd suggest we not use memorial. How about honorific?
Honorific or horrific? I don't know. I can't ever. speak.
Maybe it should be legendary.
There you go. Call it
Infamous?
tumbleweed.
Okay. Anything else, Darren?
Not on that item, no.
Okay, thank you. Item D, what should the board take into consideration when making its decisions on implementing battery storage, smart meters, solar, et cetera, to assure customers' best interest? Robert, I think you, that was one of the questions that I think you initiated. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, I just would like to make sure
Your
that we
your
have,
voice is low again.
can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's very light.
All right, well,
Put that microphone right to your mouth.
okay, bear with me, we're trying to deal with technology here. My concern all along was that before we make a large capital commitment, that we understand the cost and the benefits associated with that. And while I, haven't come to a conclusion one way or the other, I just wanted to see if the board would have before it an analysis, a cost-benefit analysis, if you will, as to what we are getting for the expenditure of funds, and is this something that is something that we need to spend now, or do we have time to defer that decision to a later date? And so I know our Sergeant Lundy had said that they could assist in going forward with making those kinds of, developing that kind of information for the major items that they were suggesting, the solar field and the battery and the smart meter proposals. So if we're in a position to be able to get that information developed, I think it would be helpful for us to decide if we want to do it and when it would make sense for the board to do that. But there's also something that we haven't really considered, in my opinion, is this something that our customers need or want now, or is it something that may become a more of a desire or necessity later in the future? And I'd like to have that kind of information as well. Customers that I've talked with very casually about this don't really see the need for some of it right now. So if we can develop that information, I think that would be necessary for us before committing to any of these technologies.
Aaron, did you want to mention? I was just going to say, did you want to mention what we got yesterday?
So kind of what I hear, Robert, and in my mind, I break this down into a couple of different groups. I see a battery offering as one thing. I see a solar offering as a second separate item. I see the AMI smart meters as a third separate item. So that's how mine works. I break those into three separate things. And so your questions about meeting a financial threshold or a need, I see each one of those having to be answered separately.
I agree.
And so with that, I'm going to go back to this third one, which Austin just brought up, the AMI, the smart meters. We just finished we've been working with Scott Lynch at DMEC and AMP. And AMP has been putting an AMI system in at Seaford. They've also done it at Milford. And we now have some we received this stuff just yesterday, so we haven't even had a chance to digest it. We're looking for the AMI at a very, what I would call a light offering, being able to use our existing meters and to put them to work. It would cost us right around $300,000 plus another $80,000 a year to maintain it for that offering. Please don't ask me for details on this. We're gonna put this in our board packet and meeting for this February's board meeting. So we're gonna have them come and give us a presentation to be able to answer your questions. So I've asked for a small offering, a medium offering where we can use kind of what we have existing with a new implementation of AMI, and then a full-blown everything, all the bells and whistles, which is right around about $1.7 million. So that's the range we're talking about. But the question really, and so for me, for that one, when we start talking about what do your customers want, that's exactly, that to me is the most key question when it comes to the smart meters. When it comes to solar, because of the state legislation, I think that kind of changes up the value of what's happening at the solar. And we're going to have to do some more research on that. We're looking, and when I talk about a community solar, that's what I'm saying is I'm looking at a 0.99 megawatt solar field, which would take a good chunk of what our the open space that's at our well field now. But I think it would handle it well. What's the cost of that? What's going to happen to the cost of that because we now have a different federal administration? Is there going to be money put into this to help us pay for that, which would bring the cost down? There's a few things that we just don't know yet, but are in flux that may change what that value of return is for us at that community solar. And I think in my mind, that one will be elevated a little more in importance. Then the first one is the battery. And I believe the battery, what we're moving forward with Sargent and Lundy, getting prepared to do an RFP. We'll then get the response from contractors, and then we'll have numbers to come back to you. I'll have numbers to come to you as the board and say, all right, here's what the cost will be. Here's the return on that investment. And we'll be able to very logically make a decision on what that'll do. I believe the batteries have a potential of really reducing our capacity charges. Our capacity charges right now, this coming month, we're going to be paying our bill of $650,000. That almost 40% of it is capacity charge. That battery can help us reduce that. And so it wouldn't take much for that to have a significant financial benefit to every one of our customers.
Well, I certainly see the importance of the battery, and I just would like to get that information so that we can move quickly on that. Unfortunate that we didn't have the battery several years ago, and that fell through. But as to the solar, I hope the presentation that will be given to us will address the question of economies of scale. I really think that I'd like to hear the benefits from remaining with DMEC to help them meet, well, they'll have to be able to meet the new state requirement. And I think continuing to participate with DMEC in their solar acquisitions would probably be able to provide that community solar benefit more cheaply than us putting in less than a megawatt of solar on our own. But I'd like to hear that addressed also in the cost benefit discussion.
One thing that I would add to that is when you look at the different technologies and the cost of these batteries, they've been coming down very steeply, but also the technology as it's ramped up, and there are like 5 or 6 different technologies that are out there right now that are coming online sooner rather than later. I think we need to look at that curve as well, because it is a cost curve and it is also an efficiency curve associated with those batteries.
And I don't think it's a bottom line decision. I think, we have to take the environment into consideration. I think it's very important in these times. We have to do our part as a responsible utility of doing what we can within, certain parameters to help the environment. I mean, we've got major problems going on, and I don't think it's a bottom line issue. I think we don't want to overdo it, but I think we have to play our part.
Two thoughts, if I can add. I mean, Robert, I completely agree on, we need to make sure we're doing what's in the best interest of the utility. But relative to the battery, just so there's no confusion, the battery, any battery that we would size would have done nothing to mitigate the outages we had 2 or 3 years ago. A battery of that size is just not practical at this time. So, maybe critical loads could have been kept on, but it would not have come anywhere close to mitigating a total loss of offsite power. The second one is relative to AMI. A lot of the press gets focused on, you can look it up on your widget and you can control your whatever. That is such a minor portion of what AMI is really for. AMI is really to be able to manage the system, to be able to know where your loads are, and to be able to craft the best rate structure, which you can only do with a time-based AMI system, and to know where your specific points of overload are going to be. And I think, as you've seen, everyone's seen in the press, General Motors is ceasing combustion engine production. Volvo has stopped combustion engine. I mean, this is taking on a much more rapid pace at this point. And to be ready for it, getting the backbone or the guts of the AMI in is probably something critical. And it really has nothing to do with what the customer is going to see. It's going to be about managing the utility efficiently.
And I think we're gonna circulate the quotes around to you guys, and then any questions that you want or that you foresee asking, if you pass them back to us, we'll push them over to Scott Lynch and AMP, and then they're gonna put a presentation together for the board meeting in about 2 weeks. And I foresee you guys having a lot of questions, because Darren and I, we had it for less than 24 hours and we got chicken scratch all over everything. So it's a lot.
Okay, well, can you get that out to us as soon as you can, so we have time to adjust it before the meeting?
Yeah, we'll pass them out. We'll get them out to you today.
Okay. Anything else on this, Robert? Do you have any more to add, or?
No, I'm looking forward to the report and the discussion that follows.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I would just add that the solar issue fits very nicely with the governor's target for energy. And so I think both at the state level and at the federal level, there's going to be a big push for more green energy. And this is one thing that we can do or can be done.
And the state has passed that 40% by 20.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so then, and I do want to let everybody out there know that that's really a doable, that doesn't shake us up horribly. That we've been on pace to be at 25 in 2025, and we'll continue moving that direction. And I think we're in good shape, both as a partner with DMEC and what we've got planned for ourselves here. And I'm hoping that if we, as we work towards a battery, and I believe we're going to make that happen, that it'll be of value to us, that can be added to a portion of that renewable requirement that we have. So I think we're in really good shape and you guys have made some good decisions.
Yeah, well, there's also.
Darren,
Go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead. Darren, do you have any information relative to DMEC? If we did nothing with solar, would you think with our participation with DMEC, would we be able to reach all of the goals that the state and the federal government has put out by 2025 or whatever?
So again, working with DMEC, I believe we can. A couple of things to keep in mind. Austin, we now have 90 people with rooftop solar here in Lewes. Is that correct?
I believe it's 98. We're almost at, including the library, we're almost at a full megawatt.
So Lewes itself, we've done a great job of our customers putting it on and using and utilizing solar. We have the wind generation at the U of D, that's part of what we have. All of that gives us a very strong standing with renewables. Because we're partners with DMEC, we are only 7% of the DMEC load. So while they're looking to make sure 100% of DMEC gets that 40% by 2035, our 7%, we get filled in very quickly. And so we're still, being a part of DMEC is a value to us that I can't overstate. And so, Tom, your question is yes, DMEC can help us make this work. I see the solar field that we would do here would also benefit our customers very well and financially.
Do you know if the new Shields School and the new middle school are going to be using solar at all? They're certainly positioned so they could.
They're positioned, but I've heard nothing about it.
No, as far as Ted, when it came before Planning Commission, we asked about it, and there's nothing in the budget for it.
I think we ought to, we may want to reopen that conversation, especially for the middle school, since it hasn't even come out of the ground yet. And Bob Fulton has been saying that the high school addition is coming in under budget, so there may be some excess funds that could.
Their rationale when we pressed them on it was that, you know, they're given so much per student, and they have to cover all the construction costs. And if it went to solar, it would have to come out of classrooms or other places. So,
well, I don't mind. Obviously, Superintendent Fulton is participating in a lot of things with the city, and be happy to try to reopen that conversation if we can.
Has there been any talk about them using electric buses? I mean,
not that I'm aware of.
Because there was discussion some time ago. I don't know whether it was just us musing ourselves or whether it came from them about purchasing electric buses and then putting it back into the grid when they're not using the buses.
Yeah,
no, there's nothing at the state level for electric buses, or there wasn't last year when I checked into it. Okay. However, that's another technology that's rapidly increasing with the electrification of urban buses, and several school districts have gone to all new electric buses. And
in Delaware?
They're available from Bluebird and the regular bus companies. So
yeah. You said several school districts in Delaware?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. You may be interested. I'm a member of the Climate Mayors organization, and they meet monthly, and they have a whole initiative on EV vehicles. You may want to reach out to them as well. We're going to be doing that in terms of looking at, you know, other new vehicles that we might be able to use in EV status. And they have a whole purchasing group. Happy to share that information with you.
Yeah, if you would, that'd be
sure
useful to us.
Okay, there are about 250 municipalities are currently purchasing EV vehicles through this cooperative agreement.
Very good. Anything else on that topic? Okay, we're at item E. What can we be doing to minimize infiltration and inflow into our sanitary sewer system? Darren, where do we stand with that? But I guess how would you and Charlie categorize our I&I problem? I mean, is it average, above average? What do you think? Is it something that we should be really concentrating on? Because I see that peak go up above 1.5 million occasionally, and it kind of concerns me.
Yeah, well, again, any I&I is a concern. I think what I have here is the report that we received just last month. So we've been taking those steps, working with now Inframark. And this is the information we're now starting able to collect. It took us a while simply because a single dot on a map doesn't show anything. But when we start seeing trends, that becomes of value to us. Here's your blue line, which shows a precipitation event, and then it shows the reaction in our lift stations. So here is lift station 4. This is the main one that's taking in all of the inland sewage, pumping it under the canal and into the wastewater treatment plant. And we can see that after these bigger events that really does it. It's pretty heavy here, but then it kind of averages out and stays pretty low here. So do we have I&I? The answer is yes, but I believe it has. So this shows, here's your general inflow, probably the immediate inflow from manholes, etc. We have put drip basins in each one of the manholes that we have. And I think that's helped reduce that effect, but we can always improve that. Maybe there's some different manhole lids. We'll see what the cost of that is. When we go to a couple of the other areas, we come down to this one. And I think this tells us, so with this information, this is pump station number 10. This is down by Tom Panetta's house. Tom Panetta, he's the big problem here.
Oh, yeah. I'm not surprised.
Here is a peak. Here's our rain event again. And yet the response from number 10, it definitely responded to the rain. Here it is at 10. But then after the event, 1, 2, 3, 4 days later, there's another peak. We then have another rain event. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 days after the peak, here it comes again. So we're going to be doing we're going to video lines. We're going to start watching what's going on. We don't know if that's, we're going to have to discover what that is. And so Emmett and our sewer crews, they're all aware of this. So they've got an eye on pump station number 10, and we're going to start doing more analysis, more digging as to what that might be. When we come to here, this one is another one that I find extremely valuable. This one's pumps. Here's the rain event. The red line here, pump station number 14. Again, we have a single day event. Then the second day and third day, it stays high. We have a single day event. The second day and the third day, it stays high. We have a little event and it comes up again. Now, again, I think I shared at the last board meeting, these volumes are not what I'm not banking on the accuracy of the volumes here, but I am looking at the trending. I believe this represents sump pumps. That what we have is when groundwater rises, when there's a rain event, you get a lot of it around a home. The homes turn on their sump pumps and send it to us. We have an ordinance, which the city, we appreciate the city supporting us and cooperating with us. In that ordinance, people are not supposed to have their sump pumps tied into our sewer system. I believe it is. I believe we have that happening here, and we're going to be paying very close attention. And again, we're going to go out. We've got a couple of rain events coming, and we're going to be videoing those lines after that event to see where that water's coming from and see if we can identify perhaps some homes that have their sump pumps connected and make sure that that gets remedied quickly. So that's what we're doing on the on the infiltration and I&I questions.
Okay. Yeah, it might be good. I know we've done it in the past, is just put together an article or something about the problems related to sump pumps and make sure people understand that they are illegal.
Well, they're not illegal. It's just dumping them into the sanitary sewers are illegal.
Yeah. No, that's right. I'm sorry.
I think you have a lot of sump pumps in
you're
crawl
right.
spaces.
So
Yeah. That's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I think you have a lot of sump pumps in crawl spaces. They're probably going, and people may not even know that they're dumping into the sanitary sewer.
Yeah.
So
Because they have, maybe what you need to do is all these guys that are advertising on TV about crawl space neglect and crawl space maintenance, you need to educate them that by a way of an email or a letter that you cannot drain or have a sump pump pump into a sanitary sewer.
Yeah.
one of the things that we
Good
do,
idea.
one of the things that I've run into is we tell people, look, you take it from your sump and you take it to atmosphere. And then there's the rule that says you can't have any overflow over your sidewalk. And so what they have to do is they actually have to take it, put it under the sidewalk and into the curb. the roadway is part of our stormwater system, curbs and gutters, and that's fine. But we need to make sure that that's a known and available fix to having that sump pump instead of going in the sewer, take it to the street. Mayor, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm sorry, Darren, what were you saying? You said something about taking for the first part of that, I missed.
So we've had people that take like, well, there's someone at the very end of Second Street all the way at the end.
Yes, I know, yeah.
And we
I
had,
a couple of homes like that.
and we said, you know, take it up to the atmosphere. He says, well, there's a rule, you can't discharge water over a sidewalk.
That's
So we-
right.
So we made them put it under the sidewalk and into the street. And that's their responsibility, and that's okay to put it there. That's where the drainage goes, and then it makes its way to our storm drain. But that's something that we need to, I think that's the fix for these.
That is the
storm-
fix.
And that it's okay, both for us and for the city, that it goes into the streets.
I think we need to make sure that there's been an issue where there's been a lot of water in the curb along Burton Avenue between 3rd and 4th Street. And that's been, I don't know if that's sump pumps or what, but that's been going on all winter. We've had a very wet winter, and there's a lot of water that lays over there. So we need to make sure that it's whatever.
There's definitely a sump pump. I can point what house it is coming out, and it goes all the way down, 3/4 of the block before it gets to a catch basin.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, but not getting it off the sidewalk is very important.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or keeping it off the sidewalk.
Now, do the building inspectors look at that type of thing? I mean, like Mariners Cove, that's a low area, and I'm sure there's, water is pretty shallow there, and I guess they're not putting any basements in, but some of the crawl spaces might be deep enough to be intersecting the groundwater, and should they be cautioning them about that when they're building houses?
I think they probably should. I'll mention it to Robin and see how they are dealing with that during their inspections.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer at present.
Well, isn't that complicated because the plumbing inspections are not done by Robin?
No, but it's something they should be informing builders of at the time that building permits issued.
Right, but I wonder if we shouldn't get in touch with the county.
Yeah.
That does our building, plumbing inspections. And make sure they're aware. I'm not quite even sure if they just are responsible for enforcing the IRC or whether they're responsible for enforcing the local codes also, Ted.
I don't know. Let me talk to Rob, and he'll have more information on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Okay, well, we'll get an answer. Okay. Okay.
All right. Anything else? Darren, anything else you have to add?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay.
Austin, anything?
No, I'm good.
So just more, you had mentioned about currently we're putting seals in the manways on the beach area. Are we doing that throughout the rest of town also?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
When we're finished the beach side eventually on the sewers, will all the manholes be coated then at that point?
We're pretty well starting that. And a couple more items on this. I'll show you some pictures of what we're talking about. We're going to be hitting Pilot Town Road, those manholes. Then we're going to be jumping over to Cedar, hitting those holes, seeing how that product works, and then we'll be continuing on inland. And so we're hitting those that we know are most problematic. Cedar has a lot of old brick manholes, and we've got bricks coming out, and so we want to secure those. So right now we're really prioritizing. We're a long way from having all of our manholes treated and secured.
I'm sure we have a lot of brick manholes in town too.
We do.
Yeah.
So actually, with all the rehabs of the streets we've done, a lot of those manholes in town have probably been eliminated.
Several of them have. So there's a lot of them that are now the good concrete barrels that are in good shape, but there's plenty of them that are still brick that we're going to be hitting and securing.
All right. Okay, item F, should we be considering rate increases in our revenue streams? Earl, was that one of your comments?
Yeah, it was. I think, just looking at some of the costs that we have, there's so many things that we can do, whether it's meters, whether it's solar farms, whether it's, protecting the waterways, et cetera. Just so many ways to spend the money that's helpful. I think looking at our rates, having the study done, et cetera, I think gives us a good indication of what we might be able to do in the future. I want us to make sure that we're not just financially sound today, but we're financially sound in the future for what's coming down the road for things like MS4 and other things as well. So that was my thought process on that.
Okay. Darren, I think you have some information that you want to show on that, don't you, about our rates, how competitive we are?
Well, we can, yeah, just, kind of bragging about it a little bit. Here we have our wastewater rates. And this is actually, Austin, you put this together. This is up to date, I believe, and in good shape?
Yeah, they just did a little bit of adjustments. But the one thing that just to mention is that when you're comparing these, they being Rehoboth, they're looking at a 1-inch meter is like their standard, and ours is more of a 5/8. Big difference in cost between the two. So when you're looking at it, obviously the orange is the Rehoboth and the blue is the BPW. Now I have a more detailed spreadsheet, but it's got a lot of numbers on it.
So does this take into account the ready to serve charge too? Is that blended in?
Yep.
For
Yep.
certain flow rate, I guess. Okay.
So if you notice, here's the crossing point, right at, I'd call that 1,800 gallons.
Mhm.
There's very few people in this world that don't use at least 1,800 gallons of water that they're going to be charged for. And so this is where, we have a higher ready to serve charge to begin with, but then we're very flat and very, we stay much more reasonable over time.
And I isn't an average, if there is an average, the average assumed flow rate for a residential unit, about 4,000 gallons a month.
Yes. Yep.
That, if you could go back to that one you had there. On the soil,
I was just to add, if you take notice, like you have how that line goes up at a very gradual increase versus a steeper increase on Rehoboth side. The difference between the two is that we start out with a higher rate to serve charge, but our commodity charge is very, very low. And Rehoboth is the opposite. They start with a lower rate to serve charge, and then their commodity charge is much steeper as you go up in consumption. And when you go over to the water side, you'll see that right off the bat. I have a lot more on water. Sewer's a little bit harder just because, like if you go to Milton's done by Tidewater. Tidewater's rates are based off where you're at, and then same thing with the county, it's based off front footage.
So you end up having several hundred different types and charts.
Yeah.
To look at. So trying to compare is tough when it comes to.
but I'm looking at this one, say 4,000. We're about what, $64, something like that.
Yeah, 64, 68.
Rehoboth
Up around 90.
90.
$68.30.
But it was,
Missed the 30.
Rehoboth, yeah, Rehoboth is $89.85.
Are they billing monthly now? Because they used to bill quarterly.
I believe it's monthly now.
That's interesting because they used to bill on a quarterly basis. And
Maybe
how recently has these rates in Rehoboth been
Last month.
increased? Well, yeah, that's my point. They're paying for that new sanitary sewer processing plant and
outfall.
I don't know if
the
you
alcohol and the plant.
Yeah.
So they've probably jumped their rates dramatically to help pay for that, because that was how many millions of dollars.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I think a year and a half ago, they put it in the paper that they were better than Lewes and all this other good stuff. But they've come to a quick little change of pace, and that's not held true. So,
Yeah, I talked to Mayor Cooper and Mayor Coons about that as they were building that. And yeah, there was a lot of shock there.
So here's our water. And again, Austin's done a fantastic job of looking at where we at compared to those around us. Here, we're all starting, when I say all the municipals, we start pretty much at the same ready to serve charge. But then the rates going forward, you can see that that spreads quickly. Here is Milton. Again, you go to that 4,000, they're up to what, $27. If you go over to Rehoboth, they're up to $38, $35. And then of course, Tidewater, who's always fun to have on the chart. We have to kind of expand. But so we're really in the ballpark here when it comes to water. Any questions or comments there?
Just to go along with that, so when you're looking at a 4,000 gallon bill, BPW is $21.08, Rehoboth's about $35.76, Tidewater is $53.84, and Milton is $27.33.
So
Roughly.
I guess, going back to this item, should we be considering increases? We're not going to increase them for just increasing sake, but we have room there to still be competitive.
Let me brag about one more. And I think this is one that really, most of the time, so some of our commercial and industrial folks, we look in here and our residential rates at 750 kW, we're at $92, while the co-op is at 94. We're just $2 off of them. But then it comes up from there for the other residentials. And I think that really shows both our governance style and what we have. We definitely take advantage that we have a very compact service area, and that is absolutely to our benefit. But I think we also do a very good job of keeping our rates very reasonable on the electric side as well. So when it comes to our rates, there's very few people that should be able to bellyache a whole lot. And then we didn't put our stormwater rate up here, but we are one of the, because there's very few other utilities or communities that actually have a utility stormwater rate. And that is also a benefit to us because we do have regulation MS3 coming. And so when we look at this, I would ask you to just come back in your memory. And this really is, we've got a couple things happening. Number one, we've got the UFS refresher that we've got, and it should be coming quickly. We finally finishing up our capital project for 5 years. We've sent that to them. They're putting that in. Austin, what's the time frame on that they're talking about?
They had one last question, which was on cash balances. Chris provided that to them. And that was what I believe from the email yesterday, the last piece to the puzzle.
So we'll be getting a recommendation from UFS that I think will be very interesting. I think where we're at is that if we were to have some small, very small, but consistent rate increases, I think we could do that. I think I'm anxious. Earl has been he's very, very astute. He's our treasurer and has shown that when it comes to our stormwater, that is the one we're behind on. Everything else is pretty close. And if we can be conservatively sound in our capital projects, if we are continue to be, fairly tight in how we're spending our money, and we'll be able to continue on. And I think some small increases might be in order, but let's wait and have UFS tell us what I suspect.
Darren, I think a good way to look at it, look, everybody likes low prices. I like them, trust me, more than just about anybody. But if we look at the things that we need to do, we need to have those trades off. We need to understand that. We don't want rusty pipes. Well, it costs money to take out rusty pipes. We want a solar field. Well, it takes money to invest in that than to save money. So I think just looking through the project list that we have, there are no bad options, whether it's meters, no matter what it is, there's a lot of great options. And I know we want to have, a safe water and sewer, and make sure we're protecting the environment. And we need to find the right balance between the money that we spend and the money that we have. And I think we're doing that. I think the study will help that. But again, it's not around trying to raise prices for pricing's sake. It's around trying to make sure we've got the right pricing to do the kind of things we need to do to keep the city safe.
Well put, yeah.
And we have one more rate increase, part of the 5-year one that we had adopted 5 years ago, and that's in water, and I believe it's 2.5% as of April 1.
And to put a note on that. I think we're at $1.27. That
Correct.
will bring us up to, I believe,
$1.
$1.02 or something to that effect.
Yeah,
we're not-
very close.
You know, we're not, I don't think we're harming anybody by doing that.
That's for 1,000 gallons. So that's,
Yeah.
that's pretty damn cheap. I often think about that when I'm really against bottled water because when you look at it, it's like $8,000 or something per 1,000 gallons if you work it out. And it's a big number. I don't know if that's quite right, but that's close to it, I'm sure. So
Well, so this is terrible. I stayed awake last night thinking about this, is that you pay more for your bottled water than you do for gasoline.
yeah, or milk.
And yet-
Right?
And yet we can sell 1,000 gallons of this, some of the best premium water ever, delivered in your home for $1.27 per thousand.
Yeah,
That's pretty
Crazy.
good.
Crazy. All right.
And not to beat a dead horse here, but the water comes with the $2 million purchase of the property to put another water tower on, another, call it $1 million for that water tower. So it all gets folded into, how we can manage this pricing process.
Yep.
Press,
Yes.
before we leave that topic, I'd like to thank Austin for putting together this information in a visual form. And I support Earl's comment that, well, before I say that, one of the things we have to remember when we look at these comparisons, we're comparing at a snapshot utility charges, and we don't know whether the competitors that are shown on there are in a hole, in an operating deficit, or if they're flush, or if they're making a profit. So we're just comparing snapshots in time over current rates and typical bills. But getting to Earl's point, I think it's important that we regularly review our rates, not only to see if they're currently recovering their costs, but also are those rates still fair and equitable in the way we recover those revenues from our customers. And so for those two reasons, it's important to, every 3 to 5 years or so, take a look and see are adjustments necessary so that we don't get in a situation where many utilities did in prior years. They deferred rate adjustments, and then instead of a small increase, there were major adjustments that had to be made. And customers, I think, can understand and accept and accommodate smaller adjustments more frequently than a major adjustment over time. So we need to review our rates regularly to make sure that we have the revenues to provide the services at the lowest cost consistent with the obligation to provide that service reliably and over time. So I think we need to get that information from UFS, see if adjustments are made, and if they are, make them in a timely fashion to avoid rate shock on our customers.
Well, I totally agree with you. I think the whole board does. Thanks, Robert. Okay. We're on item G. What new technologies are available for water and sewer rehabilitation to minimize the need for total main replacement? I forget who. Sorry.
Hello.
I forget who offered that question, but it's a good one.
I think there was a couple of people that leaned in on looking at technology to lower cost and increased efficiencies. I think it was a pretty broad group that was on that.
Okay.
So,
Darren, go ahead.
couple of things. We're doing that. And I think I'm quite proud of it. Right now we've got Coleman Avenue and 4th Street, and the contractor's been in there and he has not been gentle with anything. And so we've had some pipe in there get cracked and crushed, etc. And we've called SPS, who's Specialty Pipe Services, and they are going to be here this Thursday and Friday, and they're going to be relining Coleman and relining 4th. And what's kind of neat is that they go through, and this is relatively close to the technology that they use. In fact, it really is the same thing. They take a liner that's impregnated with resin. It's a kind of a fiberglass resin. They put it into the pipe, they pressurize it, and then they run steam through it. It takes about 8 hours, and don't quote me on the time frame, but they put steam through it, which cures the pipe in place. So it's actually called CIPP, cured in place pipe, is what they're doing. What's fun is that they run through and they stick this pipe to the wall, and it turns just as hard as a regular plastic PVC pipe. When it comes to a service connection, so a sewer connection that goes to the house, the pipe's coming off, that bubbles, and they run a robot in there that has a cutting edge on it. They then take and use you're glad that all your grandkids played video games, because the guy in the truck runs his video with the machine, takes that cutting head and goes up in there and cuts out that service connection.
Wow.
So you end up with a sewer pipe, which is just perfectly fit to the old pipe. This will give us at least 70 years of life on that pipe, because it's just like putting a brand new PVC pipe in. The best thing is, it's very non-destructive. You don't have to excavate and re-excavate. You don't have to, other than Coleman and 4th, that is already going to be repaved. We're looking at doing several streets. So on Cedar, we went through and we videoed the pipe. We selected areas that were cracked and had problems. We repair those with this cured in place pipe. And then we have that pipe that's that's back to 100% and able to function. So we've been taking advantage of this technology. This is the same group that did the outfall at the wastewater treatment plant. That one was roughly an 18-inch pipe. So they can do some very large pipe. We've used the same group for stormwater in Pilot Town Village, and that's a 24-inch pipe. So they're able to use they do some big pipe. It's going to last a long time. It is relatively inexpensive, especially when you take and avoid the cost of both road repair, of curb repair, and places like in Pilot Town Village, any of the landscaping repair. If we'd have gone into Pilot Town Village and replaced a 24-inch pipe in somebody's backyard, there would have been Billy Heck to pay. I don't know what else to say there. So that's one of the technologies that we are using today. Let me see if this will click.
Darren?
Yes.
For pipe that's got cracks in it or is not structurally sound, is this able to bridge the cracks and be stable, or is it susceptible to cracking at a failure of the where the pipe is?
The answer to that is it depends. It depends on so we have some cracks down on Coleman, and they looked at it and SPS said, yes, we can handle those. And there were some of them that were probably what I call beam breaks. In other words, the cracks, so oftentimes the pipe will simply break in half. Sometimes the pipe will break laterally, or a beam break, what I call it. What I show here, this is sort of a beam break or a singular break. Those are fairly easy for them to come across and to seal. The beam breaks are a little more difficult, but it depends on if it's only a certain length, then they can get in and do it. But they've got some numbers that I believe are engineered that if you've got for example, don't quote the number, but if it's an 8-inch pipe and you have a 24-inch beam crack, they can cover that. If it's a 28-inch break, they can't. So they've got some numbers and they've got some parameters that they know what they can fix and what they can't. So there's some places where we still, again, on Cedar, we lined some spots. We actually had to go in and physically replace pipe in other places because the failures were more catastrophic and lining it was not an option. So some it's an option to do, some it's not.
Okay, thank you.
I think this is great. Darren, is there any loss in the diameter of the pipe when we insert the sleeve?
There is, and it's usually about a 1/4 inch on the diameter.
Okay.
But there's also something called an R value, and Press can teach us all about this.
It's the friction.
An R value is how rough.
Yep.
And that's not the official term, but it's really how rough the
Yeah.
pipe is. And by actually putting, so most of the time by putting this new very slick liner in there, the R value increases, and so the actual volume doesn't decrease, and sometimes will increase just a touch. Press, am I right or wrong?
Yeah, that's right. Obviously, like the old terracotta was relatively rough compared to today's PVC. So if you were designing with terracotta back then, the slope of a sewer to get things to flow is greater because of the R value of the pipe material. If you use PVC pipe for that same run, you could have a shallower slope because it's so slick. So same thing here. If you're repairing an old terracotta or concrete pipe or some other materials that were used over the years, this stuff is much slicker. So you don't really lose any capacity, even though the diameter is smaller. It has a higher flow rate because of the lower friction
That's
loss.
an elegant solution. That's great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Some of these have kind of two things. Number one is grouting, and another one is you can actually take and instead of having to take and line the entire length of the pipe, you can actually take and line only where the repair is needed to be made. And while that was a technology we've seen, they would like to sell us as a utility that. There's some skills involved. There's some things that are just perhaps a little bit out of our purview at this point in time, but the technologies are there and we're keeping an eye on them. Press, looked like you're wanting to say something.
No, just watching.
Here's the example of another sewer main where they have machines that come in here and they actually run that sleeve up the lateral. Now the cost of that has got to be, you've got to be in a location where us digging in and replacing it has to be considered. On Pilot Town Road right now, we've gotten the sewer main has been lined. Teal is going to be coming back, and we had the option of having SPS come back and do these laterals. But the fact is that we're going to be going right next to it and digging in that ground and putting in a new water service. It really didn't have the savings. So we're still going to be disrupting the surface. We're still going to be in there. It was going to be a little bit cheaper for us to let Teal come back in and just retap and put a new service line in. But I show you this because this is a technology that is available. And there may be places where it absolutely makes sense to use that, where they can reline a service line from the main instead of us disrupting the surface. So
Darren, I assume other municipalities or BPWs are doing this as well in this area. Is that a fair assumption?
I think, again, this is probably in areas, I can see it happening in Philadelphia. I can see it happening in some of your very condensed areas where getting into a roadway and cutting it out, etc. If you can avoid doing that, this is a good way to go, but it is expensive.
Yeah.
Here where we are, where, again, Pilot Town Road, we're already going to be digging into people's yards. We're going to be fixing that anyways. We look at that, it has to be really measured and weighed what the value of it is. This is a great technology. We know it's there, and there might be a time and a place where we need it. As of yet, we haven't, but it's there.
The other sleeve technology that you had on the other page, I assume other municipalities in this area are doing that. Is that correct?
Everybody, again, these are kind of specialty items, but they're getting to be used more and more because their prices are getting to be more competitive. So it's more, it's just that supply and demand thing.
Yeah.
Starts out high. As there's more use to it, the cost comes down and it'll become even more and more competitive. But right now we've got to be very selective at how we use it.
Understand. And what I was thinking was if they are, or if they need to, if there was a possibility to, have some kind of a coalition with these other facilities and negotiate pricing down because of doing it in Milton or Seaford or Rehoboth in here, there might be some buying power to think about. I know that sounds like an unusual concept, but it might be something to, to think about, particularly with transporting the technology, the trucks and the people and everything they need to come down to do these kinds of things. Just a thought.
You bet. No, there's absolutely. So the mobilization cost
Yeah.
is also that's a real thing. You're absolutely correct. And so, and again, to mobilize just to do 3 or 4, we add that into the price and what it's really going to cost us. And so we do a pretty thorough cost analysis when we do these things.
And I know I pushed on this before, but I do think having a best practice sharing with the people around us helps everybody. And let's face it, if one person pollutes, it affects all of us. If there's good ideas that we can share or technologies that we can leverage or cost buying power that we can have with some of our surrounding neighbors, it's just something to think about.
And we really have we kind of have that in place.
Good.
In the Delaware Rural Water Association, the DRWA, our guys go to classes there. I go to classes, Austin and I go, and we're able to do those. We know some people there. For instance, we were using the other technology that we've just picked up recently is we have a new GPR, ground penetrating radar locator. Looks like a mowing, it looks like a grass mower, but you don't want to be underneath it if you want to have children ever. But it takes and looks into the ground. And that came from, we were using the DRWA, they offer that, and they came out several times, helped locate things. Because of scheduling and speed of the need, we have actually purchased our own, and our guys are using that, and it has been priceless out on Pilot Town Road. And that's because not all of our pipes are on maps. And that's because some of those pipes were put in 1920 or whatever. And so it's been very valuable in us being able to locate pipes, and it's been a great technology. This is a picture of, so we do the lining on the sewer lines, but it becomes a little more problematic when it comes to water lines. This is a lining, a coating of plastic that can go into these older pipes that look much like ours. One of the things that, and I'm looking at this very, very seriously, because we've got a couple of pipes that are on Bay Avenue, but those pipes are located almost at the front door of the homes. And with that, if we're going to go in there and try and replace that line, we would be very disruptive, and we'd be disrupting some very expensive landscaping and roadways and driveways, etc. So one of the benefits of this is the cure time. They can play, so the lining, oftentimes they go through, you have to clean out the pipe, you roto-rooter it out, and then they come through and they coat it, but then it takes several hours for that coating to become cured. And then you have to test it for all of the water quality requirements for drinking water. And not a problem, it'll pass. But when you do this, people can't be without water. So you actually have to build a separate water line on top of the ground that serves the entire length of that water line that you're now treating. They have this down where they can do it within a relatively short period of time, mainly 8 hours. And so we're going to be, we're very interested in this, so that if we can go in and within 8 hours have a pipe cleaned, coated, put back into service, you don't have to build that second line. People are still safe. And it's a technology that I think is up and coming. And I think that we will probably, that I anticipate taking advantage of.
So Darren, if you do that, what happens to the debris that you, using your words, roto-root out of the pipe? That it doesn't end up going further downstream.
You've got to manage it. So what happens is that's the big trick. We would end up you'd still have to take and have entry points.
Yes.
So we're going to have to excavate down, have a pit, excavate down, have a pit. You're going to take and collect everything that's roto-rooted out and take it and dispose of it appropriately, and then line the pipe, seal the pipe, put it back into service. So, and that's all done. there's a lot of coordination, but the time outage for water is minimized down to just 8 hours.
So the actual machine that would route out a pipe does not have a collection system attached to it.
No, no. So
I know surgically that exists for, humans that they have.
Correct. Our vac truck, what we do now, when we go through and we vac out and we're doing sewer lines, we're doing stormwater lines, we have the vacuum truck with a jetter. So you're reaching up the line, that jet is spraying water and pulling all of the debris down. And while it's being brought down, you're vacuuming it out. So you end up, so it's a collection along with the cleaning. And that's what they would do with that water line.
So Darren, the lines that, like you're talking about on Bay, are they cast iron or are they ductile iron?
I believe some are cast and some are ductile. We're going to have to, part of our study that we're doing, I'll be able to answer that one very accurately later.
So, because I mean, it seems like the process of milling the inside of the line could be very destructive to a cast iron pipe.
Right.
Just wondering, what the pros and cons are of, completely destroying a pipe in the process.
So what we've seen so far, I've got several coupons already that we've collected, and most of our 6-8 inch lines, even though they're old, they have at least a 1/2 inch of steel surrounding them. We are not having failures for the most part. We've had a couple, never, there's no absolutes in this world, but for the most part, we've got a 1/2 inch of steel still in place. And what we do is we send a chain cutter, and that chain, that head is spinning and has pressure, and it's just hitting, and it ends up making that pipe silver in color because it's cut and knocked out all the rust down to base metal. And so we would have to look and make sure that I believe if we can show that we've still got a 1/2 inch all the way around, that if we could come back through and coat that with that epoxy plastic coating, that I think that there would be a great value in that and some savings and et cetera.
Oh, and if it works, it's great. I just worried about the structural integrity of an old pipe and how much stress we put on it in the process of cleaning it out, if there was a risk there or how much of a risk there is.
You bet. And that's where that study, I'm going to lean heavily on that study from GMB looking at our pipes.
Okay.
Great question. And here's just that same, the resins and polymers that they're now building, the polyureas, they're just fantastic. And we can rehab a lot of our old, this is a lift station here, but manholes, et cetera, that we can use a lot of that technologies, and they're reasonable, they're quick, and they really, really extend the life of the facilities we have. So we are definitely looking. This is that manhole treatment that we're looking at doing. They begin by first cleaning out the manhole. Then they put a spray, a layer of the dark red, which is a very strong polyurea. They then put a foam coating on it, which helps them to make it into a uniform surface. So you don't have divots and things which can collect problems. And then they coat that one more time with the polyurea. So you've got it shrinks the diameter of the manhole a little bit, but again, it's extending that life to probably another 50 years minimum. So it's a very good product. And we're anxious to have that one.
Darren, I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Barely.
I'm speaking right into the microphone. Maybe I haven't adjusted it properly. You mentioned earlier that these coatings that are being applied in the water and sewer line are approved coatings. As a part of the contract or do we get anything that on file that we keep that if it's ever questioned what materials went in there, that they are approved products and are safe to use?
Absolutely. Yes. Those come in the contract. We will make sure that that is. On this pink coating right here, one of the things that they promise is they actually, when they're done, they put a stamp in there that gives you the date, name, etc. So you've got an identifier of when it happened, who did it, and it's right on the the manhole itself.
Hey, Darren, I was just thinking, this technology, our AquaStore tank out of the treatment plant. Now, I know that's a ceramic finish in there. Is there any possibility this type of coating could be put on there rather than replacing it?
You know what? Between now and 7 years or 9 years, when we plan on doing that, I wouldn't doubt that they do. One of the issues that I think we would, so a double coating like this pink stuff, because I think the metal, the heat and cold, the swell and shrink, I think could give some, I bet you there is, and I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think that, we'll keep an eye out on technology. Currently, all of the engineers are telling us that tank is a throwaway tank.
Yeah.
I have a hard time.
One
I have
of the
a hard-
problems with the tank is it's not necessarily just the coating on the inside. It's the fastening between the ring layers. The bolting is corroding.
No.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
There's lots of, but we'll keep an eye out. If there's if there, as Earl said, a more elegant way to fix it, we'll do it. I like it. I like the technology. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to be able to do something, but
Did you have anything else on this, Darren? Are you?
I do not. Austin, anything?
Nope, that was everything.
Really some slick ideas.
I like where you went. with
Yeah, I
that.
was about to say that was pretty good.
That one, Chris.
I'm glad somebody got it. Okay. Item H, should we consider programs such as appreciation events to engage and improve our public image? I forget who offered that, but
Well, I'd like to comment on that.
go ahead.
We've done these kinds of things in the past. I know several years ago, there was an event held at the wastewater treatment plant that offered customers and anyone who was interested the opportunity to tour the plant. I attended that. I thought that was very informative and helpful. We also post the banner annually when it's, help me, Darren, Public Power Week.
Public Power Week.
And we've also had some other programs that are available and are noticed on our website and built through bill stuffers, again, such as the energy savings that are available through our association with, help me, Darren.
Efficiency Smart.
Efficiency Smart, thank you. We've got a new website up and a portal. All these things, I think, would be an opportunity for us to periodically, semi-annually, spring and fall, have a similar type consolidated opportunity for customers to come in, have their questions answered, maybe even have a terminal there that we could show them how to log into the portal and how to manipulate or navigate the portal, answer their questions, give them a tour of the wastewater treatment plant, making them aware of the various programs under the energy efficiency program, and just have a better interaction with our customers. I think it would be helpful, and so of course, we can't do very much of this with the COVID restrictions, but as soon as they loosen up, I'd like the board to consider doing that at least annually and hopefully semi-annually, weather permitting.
Well, if the truth be told, Darren's been pushing for that for some time. And I think it's a great idea. I've just been reluctant in this period of COVID to have a group assemble out there at the treatment plant. I was hoping we'd get through this sooner rather than later. But I think, having a picnic at the treatment plant, what else could you ask for?
We maybe not want to give them chicken dinners, but our
Yeah,
some takeaways.
you got to keep up with the co-op some way, right?
Bunch of burritos and a bunch of baby Ruths at the end. But very seriously, so one of the things that I think we are all concerned about is that we have a good election. May 8th, I believe, is our election this year. If we were to have something mid-April to bring people that thought in and have someone there to help them register to vote, to make sure they're on our rolls so that they can vote. I think that's what I'm currently shooting for, recognizing that if the COVID shuts it down or won't allow that to happen, but I still think we can outdoor, have ventilation, whatever. I think I'd like to do that for that outreach. I think we've got a good operator. We've got some good things happening down there. We're moving a lot of crap and it doesn't stink. And I think we should brag about that. So.
Well, I've had quite a few people ask for tours of the plant, but I think April is a little optimistic, especially with the latest that's come out from the governor on 1C not happening till April. So I think the vaccination schedule is dragging on and is going to determine when we can do this. I'm all for it, but I don't think it's going to happen in April.
I agree with Tom. I think that the governor's been very conservative about any kind of gatherings. And we're going to be taking up an issue about what kind of things we're going to allow to happen this summer in terms of gatherings at the beaches and things like that at our meeting on tomorrow night. So the governor's been, and we're having a fireworks meeting on Friday morning. There's been a lot of concern about the variants of the virus, of the vaccine, and the availability of vaccine, which are hampering a more open approach. So I think April is very ambitious.
I agree with that. The other thing I was thinking about is it's possible if we have this kind of an open house whenever we have it, whenever it's appropriate to have it, maybe there's an opportunity to leverage some of the city's aspects as well. You know, the police station, you know, different things that happen within the city government. There might be a way to kind of work together that would actually draw more people into the process.
Yeah. Well, the issue is you don't want to draw more people right now.
Well, I get that. I get that completely. Yeah, I'm all in on that.
Yeah. So
one of the things we might consider is meeting with the HOAs and associations to review some issues they have and some issues we have and so forth and so on. We could maybe reach a much greater group all at once by doing that.
HOAs have been canceling their meetings.
Obviously now we can't do it with COVID, but I'm thinking in the future.
Yeah, I agree, Tom. I mean, I think they'll be great. I think, you know, offering our services as a speaker at their meetings, they usually look for people that, you know, to speak at them. And I think they'd appreciate that.
You'll have ample opportunity if you adjust the rates and you significantly, you'll have ample opportunity.
Ted, along the lines with Darren just brought up, has the governor said anything about the upcoming municipal elections and timeframes?
No, they expect to go forward as they have at normal times.
Okay, so we're not gonna have a rerun of last year.
No, I think because he did say that we would have to do charter changes if we were going to go forward with looking prospectively. You know, charter changes would be required to if you're going to do more mail-in ballots and things like that. But under the pandemic, he will continue that process.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any further comments on that topic? Item I, what can we do with the cable and telephone utilities using our poles to remove unsightly and potential safety issues on their abandoned wires and equipment? Should we update our pole attachment charges? Tom, you had some personal experience with this. You brought this up. Maybe you could take this.
Yeah, so I mean, there's two separate issues. The one is the existing condition that's out there. And I think anyone who's walked around town has seen there's an awful lot of abandoned coax and telephone lines hanging down from the poles. And some of it's coiled up and sitting on the sidewalks and frankly is a safety hazard. I talked to Darren and, I think in the short term, if we all just put, as we see them, put together a list of the address that's closest to the pole or the pole number. We can go out there and at least clip the wires up at the top. But, long term, we need to look at holding Verizon, Comcast accountable for not abandoning lines in place or letting them just drop to the ground. Because it's unsightly, and frankly, in a lot of cases, it's a safety hazard.
Tom, or everybody, I did talk to Mike about this, and he didn't have enough information to make, any real definitive information for us. He'd want to look into it and know who exactly they are and get more information. But, of course, his first suggestion was we contact them, the utilities, and request that they address the issues. So I think your idea of accumulating some data for them as far as where they are, so we can have a feel for how pervasive this is, I think it's a good start. And then I don't know, it's always good to contact them. We should do it, but experience with utilities in the past has not been too good, I don't think, as far as getting them to react to concerns. So we'll have to get Mike some additional information so he can research it further.
They don't respond very well. Verizon's very slow. Any kind of service on that way, Comcast kind of the same. But what I've asked Tom is that if you see poles that are definitely unsafe, if you've got wires, so what's happening is those connections, most people are going to a different type of connection. So they just disconnect them. If they are dangerous, I've told Bob, we'll go out and we'll cut them and remove them, because we don't want, no safety issue is a good issue. So we will remove those if you let us know where they are. Admittedly, our guys are going to go out and we're looking at our poles, we're looking at our transformers and our wires and making sure that ours are safe. We try to be courteous with Verizon and Comcast, because oftentimes it's between users that they're, maybe that's not being used and then put in. But if it's going to be there for any length of time, we'll cut it out of the way.
So do our guys, when they see it, do they do that now? Do they clip things that they know are out of service? And
no, because you don't know who's going to. So if there's a complaint, we will handle it. The problem is that oftentimes it's in between residents, it's between renters or whatever. So that comes down, but then it gets put back up. And so it's not our asset, but if you tell us that you want it down, we'll take it down.
I've seen a couple of places where there's a utility line running across the street. There's one here on at least one on Cedar, and the supporting wire that was there to support the cable is still there, and the wire is wrapped around it, but it's cut off at both ends. I mean, it's just ready to fall off. And I mean, if it's so obvious that it's not being used, and they could even take that supporting wire down if they, need it.
Yeah.
So I think Tom has a great idea. We should start. As we walk around, Linda and I, and I noticed them several times. So I'll start writing them down.
Please write them down.
I'll do the same. Good idea.
That'd be great.
You could also, as part of public education, you also ask the public if they're upgrading their service and abandoning a line, that they ask Comcast or Verizon when they come out to take down the line all the way out. So the public can help you with that to some extent.
Very good.
Good point. But way to find out. I mean, I think we got to ask Mike to pursue that a little bit further and see what we legally can do. And as far as pole attachments, I think we've discussed this many times. Is there a reason? I mean, we've discussed it several times over the years, but we haven't done anything. I know you've looked into it, and it's a real swamp to get into. Is it worth our effort? Sure.
Well, you're talking, we can go up, I think 5% on so we're $3.50 a pole attachment, I believe, with the old AT&T, and we can go up by 5% so long as it meets the criteria of anyways, there's a great big formula in there. We're talking about 800 poles. We're not talking a lot of money, $2,400 roughly a year on that.
I
So
think I was gonna say, I think the way the contract writes is that if you have an increase in the cost per pole of X percentage, what I think is 5, then you can justify an increase in your pole attachment agreement per pole, but it doesn't, there's no language on what that number could be. Now we could go through and just come up with a number, but then they could go back and fight that number. So it's,
But do you know when the last time we adjusted that?
it's never, I don't think we,
That's
so I think
that just bothers me, that because they're such a pain to deal with, the utilities, and they're getting away almost scot-free using our poles, and we're not doing anything about it. But I understand your rationale.
Yeah. The other thing is, so when it comes to the Verizon, we don't have a pole attachment agreement for Verizon, but we do have a tank lease agreement with them. And that tank lease agreement does pretty well for us. We get about 33,000 a year off of that. And so I think that we're getting really, our pole attachment is in there. I did, for your information, both of the AT&T and the Verizon agreements for rental off of our water tanks, etc. Those are coming up on their 20-year anniversaries, and I've shared them with Mike. One of them is not due until 2022. The other one is coming due in 2023-24. And I've sent that information to Mike so that he can start prepping for it, and we can start going through that maze of who do we have to talk to. About a year ago, the Verizon people approached us and begged. They said, hey, we don't want to continue with these contracts. Those have an annual increase of about 4%. And that's done very good for us. But they said that was too much, wanted it off. With your input, I told them, no, we're not interested in changing or reducing that. And they've gone radio silent, part of it, whether that's COVID or what. But I plan on picking that back up and being prepared for that 2023 renewal.
With just a thought, with the 5G poles that are going to go up in the future, is that going to minimize the use of the tank poles? I mean, the equipment?
In my opinion, no. They still need to have, that's still a kind of a backbone system that's going to be feeding and taking care of the, but the 5G is going to take one asset. I don't know. I really don't know. That would be something. Tom Panetta, do you have an idea of what's going to happen there?
I think they're like hotspots.
They're not going to be taking down the 4G system, and what's up on the water tower gives them much larger penetration. So my understanding is that for the very near term, or the near term, the 5G is going to boost within the range of where the 5G antennas are, but you still need the overarching to make sure you get good overall coverage.
I've got a question to Austin or to Darren. The old pole attachments versus the 5G attachments, are they separately negotiation? Are increases in rates on either of them, are they fall under separate rules, as that we can do more, we have more flexibility with the old pole attachments than we do under the 5G, which my understanding was have been basically usurped by the feds, and we have less ability to deal with those?
I believe, this is my opinion, I believe that we actually have the same amount of control in our service area and in our right of ways because of the work that we've done with the city, or the new 5G, that pole resolution that's been put into place, policy. And so I think we've got a pretty firm hand on the new 5G when it comes in. Haven't had anybody approach me on anything yet, either using our poles or installing their own. I haven't seen anything on that, but I think we're in good shape to protect ourselves and to manage what's going in. And again, the BPW, our voice on that is purely whether it's safe and whether it works. And the aesthetics part of it, that's the cities. And so that's how that breaks up.
Yeah,
Mayor, any opinion?
I got that. I just didn't know.
That's my understanding as well.
I just didn't know whether the ability to negotiate rate changes on the attachment agreements were different for the traditional versus the 5G. That was the general question. The second question, Mr. President, can we schedule a break in the near future for a minute?
That sounds good. When we finish this item, I think we're just about finished it. Is there anything else? Oh, I guess I did have one other thought. When we build the new tank, the water tank, I guess there'll be people that want to use that too. So that'd be some source of income. Would 30,000 be an annual estimate, Darren, for that too?
I'd sure shoot for that, yeah, or
Yeah,
more, 30,
that's a little-
35.
It's a little bit, it's not going to pay for the tank, but it'll certainly help pay for the paint maybe.
Yep.
All right. Anything else on this item? You want to take a 10-minute break?
That would be great. I'd vote for that.
Okay. All right, it's, so I have it's 20 of, so 10 of,
20 of.
okay, it's maybe by 10 of, we'll come back.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
I guess we're all back, right? Everybody here?
Okay.
All right, let's resume. I guess we're on item J, which we do with the properties that are in our service territory, but are not receiving services, such as the properties on New Road. I forget who brought that up initially, but
I'd like to have input.
well, then you pick it up, because I'm not sure who, I don't know where we start with that, but I was gonna have the mayor start if nothing else.
Well, obviously, we'd like to annex them all. And New Road is only one of the parcels in the list you provided. Thank you. Is obviously you included prospectively in that list of properties that are not yet, maybe not even in the service area, but are in the receiving. They haven't been identified. I think of some of those things on Donovan's Road and so, but we would like to, where appropriate, where they're contiguous, we'd like to get them annexed. And there has been some discussion about, now that we have this list, we need to go back through it. And I mean, we know that the ones out there in Wolf Run, Wolf Point, we're not going to be able to annex those. That pre-existed the annexation agreement. But there are other properties, like I'm seeing Kings Drive and things like that, which is back in Swanndale Farm development. Those are ones that would be great to annex. And then you have the ones on Donovan's Road, and then those 10 houses on Savannah Road. Those are all going to be contiguous, and so we'd like to work on those.
We also just,
Darren, at the outset of this discussion, would you refresh my recollection? The last time we discussed this in general terms, GMB and you presented a map or an analysis of the area, the properties outside the incorporated area of Lewes that were within our service area. And my recollection is that the conclusion was that if all of those properties came in, we had adequate capacity to serve them in all respects, electric, water, and wastewater. Would you confirm that, or has there been any change in the analysis that would indicate that we do or don't have capacity to serve if all of them came in.
So for each one, for electric, our opportunity to expand there is fairly limited. And yes, we have fantastic capacity. Right now, we're running around 65% capacity. That's looking at our major transformers that are at Schley. Now, there's not the redundancy there, but we're still about 65%. Tom has done a great job of helping us there. In 10 years, we'll look at increasing the capacity of there. But our expansion in the electric, I think, is very limited. When it comes to the water,
I'm sorry, Darren, you said the capacity to expansion in electric was very limited. What do you mean by that?
I should say that thank you, I've got to be very clear here. Our ability to expand outside of our CPCN, I see that very limited in that the number of future homes that we would be providing electric to is limited. And so our existing capacity is very good.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I'm not saying that we would look beyond the existing service area that we have, just to, do we have capacity to serve within the service area for the individual utilities that we provide, should we reach out into those unincorporated areas? That was my question.
Excellent. Electric is in exceptional shape. We're good. When it comes to the sewer, we have the capacity at the wastewater treatment plant right now at 1.5 MGD. We're able to serve them and the future growth of our existing service area as designed between ourselves and the county. That means that we would be able to reach all the way up the railroad tracks, the walking path, all the way up to Old Orchard, New Road, all of those areas that have been designated as our responsibility, our CPCN. Yes, we have the capacity to serve them in the sewer. On the water, we have the new well we're developing over on New Road. With that and our existing structure, I believe it'll be a little tighter, but I would still say we're about 85% strong in meeting all of those needs. They were very good shape.
Okay, thank you.
Just clarification on what I shared with everybody. So over here it shows that the pre-annexation agreement has been provided to the city, while over here we are serving. So that's there's some of them that we have not, some of them are no's, and some of them are no, some are yes and yes. So like Admiral's Chase, we're serving them, they're outside the city limits, but we have provided that pre-annexation agreement to the city and we're serving them. That's the
And they're
same
not
as-
contiguous, so they can't be served, or they can't be annexed, so.
Correct. But there's others like this, again, we provided it and they haven't
Got
been annexed.
You're right.
Press, you're muted.
There's a house under renovation right across from me, and they're starting to use their hammers more than they were, so I muted. Darren, did you have anything else? You started saying something.
This is really something that I'd love to have
Go ahead.
direction from you of what, from the mayor, what do you want from us doing?
Well, I think at this point, we've just gotten the list. Council has a copy of it. They're looking it over. Obviously, we were looking for what incentives can we offer? And we had developed a plan or a thought process of what we might offer on New Road. Obviously, this is not a one size fits all, because the cost of providing services to various places is not the same. So I think that we have to do some more work in terms of what would we offer. And I think, working together on this before you expand any further services would be very helpful.
Probably the most recent is over here on Savannah Road, that we're going to probably have a dollar amount estimate of sewer connection and water connection for those folks. And we ought to be having some discussions with them as a community.
Okay,
Darren, can we access this list?
Yeah, it was provided to you.
Okay, I didn't see it, but I'll go look again.
Okay, I'll make sure, I'll resend this when I'm done here.
So what are you looking for from us at this point? Mayor, are you ready? Do you want to get your own act together before we sit
I think
down?
we need to have, now that we have this list, we just got it last week, I think.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to have an in-house discussion amongst the five of us as to how we want, what we would offer. Okay, and how we would go about doing that. But I think we need to, this is a dialogue that I think it's gonna be ongoing for the next, 60 days while we work out what we're doing here.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Let us know.
Yeah, I think, obviously the new road is one parcel, and I've had some interesting conversations with people who live at the end of Hornkill. One member of council said that somebody they spoke to on Hornkill did not want to be provided, and yet I've talked to a couple other people who live at the end of Hornkill who very much want to be incorporated into the city. And what Charlie has told us is that the provision of services, water and sewer, there is a substantial expense that those homeowners would have to bear.
Right.
So what can we offer? What can we offer as to help offset that? It's not the same as what's already in the ground on new roads. So those costs are relatively, I want to say the word minor, but they're certainly a lot less than what it would take to bring Hornkill in.
Okay.
Okay.
Had you considered, I think we talked about this before and I forgot where we went with it, but the small diameter with grinder pumps rather
I mean,
than.
that's a whole nother discussion that could be had. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
I think we need to develop a strategy as to how we would approach each of these, where there are enclaves of 10 houses or, then we need to have a strategy as how we're going to approach those 10 properties.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, when you're ready, we'll be with you.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. The last item, we've made it to the last item. K, review the list of all present BPW policies for potential in-depth discussions at a future workshop. Darren, it was great to see all those the resolutions and so forth that you've been able to identify, going back all the way to the beginning. The one that I liked the best, though, was where the secretary was authorized to go, or ordered to go out and collect from all the electric services back in 1905 or something. So, so Robert, if you're ready, that's still in effect.
If I get sworn in as a deputy sheriff or something, I'd be happy to go do
A
that.
marshal, yes.
I think it's the second one, I believe. Yeah, there it is.
I'd have to have Suzanne go with me because I think she's got a pretty good track record in collecting.
Well, I've gone through many of these, and I guess others have too, but there are a lot of resolutions and very few policies from what I gleaned out of things that have been approved over the years. And I've talked to Mike about it, and we've agreed that probably the best thing to do is to go through them all and decide which ones, a lot of them were for a short period of time for a specific reason or something. There was one in there where they set a rate to, for some reason, haul water out to the ships three miles off the shore. So I don't think we have to worry about that anymore. But that we'd go through them and identify all the resolutions that were put together and determine which ones should be policies, should have been policies initially, and whether they still apply. And then retroactively make them policies. So that was the thoughts that we had. So, and it's going to take some time, but I think it's certainly doable. I mean, most of them aren't very lengthy to read or anything, so I think we can go through them over the next couple of months and find out which ones are potential policies, and then decide whether we want to make them policies.
I think Earl and I need to look at the first one and see whether or not we want to put in a bill for past services.
$50 per year.
Well, only if you're gonna go, if only if you're gonna act on the second one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're really interesting.
Word.
I've gone through many of these in the past when I was looking for our purchases of land over the years. So they're a lot of fun to read some of the old minutes. One meeting, I think it was above the shops on 2nd Street that they were meeting, but they had to postpone it because the brass band was practicing in the next area. So, but they are amazing. So that's the recommendation, or at least the thought about moving forward with these. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Well, we certainly need to keep them from a historical perspective, but some of them obviously have been rolled into utility tariffs and otherwise memorialized. And, so I guess that would be one thing that we would see where how we would categorize and file them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Chris and staff Chris has done a great job.
Oh, amazing.
A lot of these have the rescinded by also along with it, policy, tariff, etc. So I appreciate her work on this.
Yeah. Well, I think it's good.
To break this out over a number of sessions, or what was the thought on this, President? It sounds like you were.
Yeah, I think we decide who wants to take this on, and then I would think we could go through them all at some point, maybe over a 2-month period. The whoever elects to do this over maybe a 2-month period, you could go through all of them and come up with a list that you felt would be should be considered for policies, and then you can bring them to the board in groups, I guess, or we can have a workshop with a few hours where we go over them. So it all depends on how many pop up that should be discussed.
Darren, how difficult would it be to just go down the list quickly with some of your folks and pick out the ones that are totally ridiculous and absolutely absurd at this point, so that we can cross all those off before everybody takes a look at the list and see, whether we have to get into more detail.
We could do that, but again, this is kind of an opinion.
Yeah.
I know what I think is ridiculous, while you might not think it's ridiculous. So that's
Okay.
kind of that becomes subjective, is my concern.
Tom, I don't think it's, I mean, there's a lot there certainly, but I don't think it's something that we couldn't do. I mean, I think what I'm thinking is, 1 or 2 of us, well, two of us, I guess, be best, go through them and then just decide which ones we think that are possible policies that we'd want to keep. And then
Okay, well, I'd be willing to do that.
board.
I'd be willing to go through the list and take a look at them.
Well, Earl originally brought this up, and so
That'll teach me.
yeah, I'd like to keep him involved if he has the interest.
Look, I think a team effort on this, Tom, with you and me, and if anybody else wants to jump in, I think that's
Sure, I'd be happy to do it.
Perfect.
Okay, why don't we do that? I think I'm going to read through them just for fun, because they're very interesting from a historical standpoint. If that's good with everybody, we'll leave it at that. And
I would see us coming up with a list of things that are just out of scope completely.
Oh, yeah.
Marginally out of scope that people can say, oh, let's put that back in or take that back out. And then with ones that are more meaty for us. So we'll come up with a process and run it past the board.
I bet at least half of them aren't going to be, they're just, even considered seriously. So
I think the first one's in though. I think that's a lock. We're gonna put that one in.
all right. Anything else on that? If not, I think we've gone through the whole list. I thought it would take us longer, but
So the only question is, Earl, do you want an escalation clause or are you just happy with the straight $50?
I like that 4% a year in perpetuity in giving to family members as well. So
You could put a bill in now, both of you could put a bill in now because until it gets stricken, it's still on the books.
There you go. There you go.
Well, if the increase is compounded over, 116 years, it might be a sizable amount of money.
120.
yeah, it's 120.
Well, no, but what was it, 1905?
No, it's something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have anything else to discuss? Anything else that the rest of us should know about? All right, then I think we'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. I think it was a good meeting.